I'm back, boys and girls. Part 2 of Chapter 4, Magicians Nephew. We have had to use our imaginations a lot on this part. Are you able to picture the things that they are seeing? Have you been able to focus and stay in the story, or is your mind drifting off? Try and imagine what they're seeing. Be intentional as I've been reading the different descriptions. These were nice people, I think, said Digory. Polly nodded. All the faces they could see were certainly nice. Both the men and women looked kind and wise, and they seemed to come from a handsome race. But after the children had gone a few steps down the room, they came to faces that looked a little different. These were very solemn faces. You felt you would have to mind your P's and Q's if you ever met living people who looked like that. When they had gone a little farther, they found themselves among faces they didn't like. This was about the middle of the room. The faces here looked very strong and proud and happy, but they looked cruel. A little farther on, and they looked even crueler. Further on again, they were still cruel, but no longer happy. They were even despairing faces, as if the people they belonged to had done dreadful things and also suffered dreadful things. The last figure of all was the most interesting. A woman, even more richly dressed than the others, very tall, but every figure in that room was taller than the people of our world, with a look of such fierceness and pride that it took your breath away. Yet she was beautiful, too. Years afterward, when he was an old man, Digory said he had never in all his life known such a woman so beautiful. It is only fair to add that Polly always said she couldn't see anything specially beautiful about her. I think that's an interesting part of our story. We'll come back to that. This woman, as I said, was the last, but there were plenty of empty chairs beyond her, as if the room had been intended for a much larger collection of images. I do wish we knew the story that's behind all this, said Digory. Let's go back and look at that table sort of thing in the middle of the room. The thing in the middle of the room was not exactly a table. It was a square pillar about 4 feet high, and on it there rose a little golden arch from which there hung a little golden bell, and beside this lay a little golden hammer to hit the bell with. So let's go over that again. So it's a square pillar. It was about 4 feet high. There was a golden arch on this table, or this pillar. Picture kind of like a column, maybe. And there hung a bell, and then there was a hammer. I wonder, said Digory. There seems to be something written here, said Polly, stooping down and looking at the side of the pillar. By gum, so there is, said Digory, but of course we shan't be able to read it. Shan't we? I'm not so sure, said Polly. They both looked at it hard, and as you might have expected, the letters cut in the stone were strange. But now a great wonder happened, for as they looked, though the shape of the strange letters never altered, they found that they could understand them. If only Digory had remembered what he himself had said a few minutes ago, that this was an enchanted room, he might have guessed that the enchantment was beginning to work. But he was too wild with curiosity to think about that. He was longing more and more to know what was written on the pillar, and very soon they both knew. What it said was something like this. At least, this is the sense of it, though the poetry, when you read it there, was better. Make your choice, adventurous stranger. Strike the bell and bide the danger. Or wonder till it drives you mad what would have followed if you had. How do you think you would have responded in a world that you just entered by jumping into a pond with a special ring on your finger? seeing the statues and the clothes and the emeralds and the table. And then you read that poem. Let's read it one more time. Make your choice, adventurous stranger. Strike the bell and bide the danger, or wonder till it drives you mad. What would have followed if you had? What are they going to decide to do? No fear, said Polly. We don't want any danger. Oh, but don't you see that's no good, said Digory. We can't get out of it now. We shall always be wondering what else would have happened if we'd struck the bell. I'm not going home to be driven mad by always thinking of that. No fear. Don't be so silly, said Polly, as if anyone would. What does it matter what would have happened? I expect anyone who's come as far as this is bound to go on wondering till it sends him dotty. That's the magic of, you see. I can feel it beginning to work on me already. Well, I don't, said Polly crossly, and I don't believe you do either. You're just putting it on. That's all you know, said Digory. It's because you're a girl. Girls never want to know anything but gossip and rot about people getting engaged. You looked exactly like your uncle when you said that, said Polly. Why can't you keep to the point, said Digory. What we're talking about is, how exactly like a man, said Polly in a very grown-up voice. But she added hastily in her real voice, and don't say I'm just like a woman or you'll be a beastly copycat. I should never dream of calling a kid like you a woman, said Digory loftily. Oh, I'm a kid, am I? Said Polly, who was now in a real rage. Well, you needn't be bothered by having a kid with you any longer then. I'm off. I've had enough of this place, and I've had enough of you too, you beastly, stuck-up, obstinate pig. None of that, said Digory, in a voice even nastier than he meant it to be, for he saw Polly's hand moving to her pocket to get hold of her yellow ring. I can't excuse what he did next, except by saying that he was very sorry for it afterward, and so were a good many other people. Before Polly's hand reached her pocket, he grabbed her wrist, leaning across her with his back against her chest. Then, keeping her other arm out of the way with his other elbow, he leaned forward. Oh, this is going to be bad, can't you tell? He leaned forward, picked up the hammer, and struck the golden bell a light, smart tap. Then he let her go, and they fell apart staring at each other and breathing hard. Polly was just beginning to cry, not with fear, and not even because he hurt her wrist quite badly, but with furious anger. Within 2 seconds, however, they had something to think about that drove their own quarrels right out of their mind. As soon as the bell was struck, it gave out a note, a sweet note such as you might have expected and not very loud. But instead of dying away, it went on, and as it went on, it grew louder and louder and louder. Before a minute had passed, it was twice as loud as it had been to begin with. It was soon so loud that if the children had tried to speak, but they weren't thinking about speaking now, they were just standing there with their mouths hanging open, they would not have heard one another. Very soon it was so loud that they could not have heard one another even by shouting. And still it grew, all in one note, a continuous sweet sound, though the sweetness had something horrible about it, till all the air in that great room was throbbing with it, and they could feel the stone floor trembling under their feet. I'd be feeling nervous now, what do you think? Then at last it began to be mixed with another sound, a vague, disastrous noise, which sounded first like the roar of a distant train, and then like the crashing of a falling tree. They heard something like great weights falling. Finally, with a sudden rush and thunder, and a shake that nearly flung them off their feet, about a quarter of the roof at one end of the room fell in. Great blocks of masonry fell all around them, and the walls rocked. Are you picturing this, boys and girls? The noise of the bell stopped. The clouds of dust cleared away. Everything became quiet again. It was never found out whether the fall of the roof was due to magic or whether that unbearably loud sound from the bell just happened to strike the note which was more than those crumbling walls could stand. There, I hope you're satisfied now, panted Polly. Well, it's all over anyway, said Digory. And both thought it was, but they had never been more mistaken in their lives. Da-da-da. That is the end of chapter 4. Chapter 5 is called The Deplorable Word, and I'm going to read that for you next time. Have you noticed the last couple chapters, they've made comments of, and later on when Digory spoke about it. And even later, when Digory thought about it, he still felt the same. That tells us that Digory and Polly are going to survive these adventures, doesn't it? We don't have to worry about that or think about that. Just an interesting thing. I'm wondering if you picked up on that. Okay, boys and girls, until next time, bye-bye.